rolling in the Jeep, dust in the air. Clay road adventures, we're almost there. Chatting with potters, spinning their wheels on the clay road.
Let's see. What I'd like to demonstrate are these the slab trays. And here are two examples of slab trays that I make. And some of the tools that I use to do. My technique and my materials are low tech. This starts out with a bit of a tale of woe. I closed this finger in a car door a couple of years ago, many years ago. And the nail turned black. It was nasty. And I couldn't throw. I put little caps over it and everything that got in. The clay was nasty. So I was forced to do hand building and not get creepy mud into that blackened nail. And so I built all of these trays over here. During that time, I have a table saw, and I do sort of meatball woodwork, and I built all of those trays. And here's just some sample. Here's the tray. Here's the tray. This goes in here, and of course it's shrunk, but there you see it. And the little thing about this, if you look, there's a lip here on the edge. It doesn't go down straight into the bottom, which then leaves a ledge on the back to wax to. I like that better. There's something in the form to wax to. There's that. And my work tends to be very direct, and every mark that I make, I like to leave. I like to make a meaningful mark. I don't like to cover over, smooth over the marks that I make. I like to make definite marks. And when I put the slip on, for example, I like to show that it was wet when I did it. Now, think about this. You see how the combing goes all the way through and up the side of the pot. So in order to do that, I have to put that slip on while the slab is flat. Because if I put it in there, I don't get a nice flow of that mark. Let me get the material, the thing I used to make the flow. Here they are. As I said, my tools a lot of them are handmade, and the materials that I use, the tools that I use, these are all just old plastic cards. Here's my old health card. Wait. Is that Brad Pitt? No, that's me. My old health card. And I cut notches in them and make little shapes depending upon how it's done. And I use these cards to comb through wet slip too when I'm throwing. So some of the techniques that I use in throwing, in decorating, I use in the hand building. And as I said, when I make a mark, I don't want to cover it over. Bang, there's the mark. Zook, there's the mark. Bang, there's the mark. Here's the mark. So I like to leave the marks and not smooth them in. Even in throwing, where if I'm putting a pedestal on or a lid on, I'll make a mark to hold it in all the way around, and I leave that. I don't smooth it out. And most potters, many potters, make that seem invisible. And I use that joint as a possibility of decoration. So this is what was added, boom, and you can see how it was added and what tool I had in my hand when I did it. Sometimes the tool is a finger. Sometimes it's a serrated stick. Different things. But almost always, it's done with purpose, and the mark is left. Okay, so there's this. There's that. So hold this up. And not only that, but I get 2 for the price of 1. So I can put this back down and run the wire this way, and I'll have another one that's just like that, or the counterpart of that. Okay, I'll get this out of my way for a minute. Put it over here. So, and you can see how by not dragging the wire through evenly, every time I made a little hiccupy joke, it gave that movement, and I like that movement. I like there's a sense of fluidity about my work too, where the way I comb through the slip when I'm throwing is a lot like this. So every technique I use sort of reinforces that sense of fluidity, that sense of directness. So this is a little bit raw for me. So what I sometimes do is I'll stretch it a bit. Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. Oh, I forgot to say this. This is important. Oh, now you'll notice I went through the side of the clay, not across it. The way a pug mill works is that the pug mill grinds the clay together and it's forced out the end of the pipe. And if you try and cut across the side without wedging, 9 times out of 10 that pot's going to crack, because there's a weakness created by the auger going through the pug mill. But if you run down the side, you don't have that problem. And this hunk of clay off of that hunk of clay is not going to crack. I can almost say certainly was not going to crack. Okay, now that's important. I almost forgot to mention that. So I'm going to stretch this a little bit. Soften it a bit. And it's still a little bit too obvious for me. I don't know what I'm going to do. And as I work, I look at it and see what I like, what I don't like. Okay, so it's getting about the right size. Let's see how that fits on this. So that's pretty close to being what I want. I think I'm going to stretch it a bit more. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to soften it a bit. Soften it a bit. I'll keep most of the ripple, but it's a little too ripply, believe it or not. That's a lousy pun. Okay, now I'm going to get my, I have two rolling pins. I have the Big Mama here and just a regular rolling pin. And I think on this, I soften this just a little bit. There, see, that's doing it. Oh, that's nice. That's better. So now I've made an area on this slab where the ripples are there, but they're not so obvious, not so blatant. And I've stretched the clay a bit more too. That's what I have in mind. Okay, so let's make this just a little bit bigger. And the reason I use the thicker 3/8 inch stick is that I knew I wanted it at least 1/4 of an inch. And after I spread it out, I knew it was going to be less than that, less than 3/8, closer to 1/4. There it is. So now I'll get one of the formers that I built, you'll notice that I was none too careful in smoothing it out. The raw, rough cut wood is still left there. I like that. I don't scrape it over, I don't smooth it out. I like the fact that the saw marks are still there. Okay, those are ones that I made myself and just bisque fired. And in this box of stamps, here's one that I like a great deal that I bought. I use that one all the time. I like this one. But in here, most of them you will see are ones that I made. They're at the bottom of the box. Okay, so I can either stamp directly, or I can put a piece of clay on top, a little dot of clay on top, and pick it up and put it through. But this one I think I'm gonna stamp directly. There's one. I like this little spiral too. Yeah, there's that. What else have we got here? Ooh, that's a good one. The smaller one. Different sizes. So I'm taking that section and deciding what I want. Don't want that. Maybe this one. That one there. One more over here. Okay. I'll lock the door. I don't see it. I'm forever looking for the tool that I won't look for it now. I'll just decide on something else. So this is the one. And there. Okay, so I make my decisions about the piece as I'm working on it. I did not have this in my mind when I started. I made something, looked at it, it suggested something else, I did something else, and I didn't use these because I didn't think it needed it. I'll get this out of my way. Now we're going to come to now you can see the center of it has been forced down and the excess clay is over the edges. And I shoved it closer to this end because I thought it'd be better that way. And the next step is to get my knife, which I should have it ready, but I don't. Here it is. Ooh. And this little tool that I use all the time, if you just take a scan, you see I have tons of the same kind of tool. And I use different ones for different things. So my fettling knife. Now if I wanted a perfectly straight edge, I could do it very easily. Zip, just along the side. I don't want a straight edge. So I'll take this tool and I'll zip around and make a wavy edge. Cut off the corner. Again, that wavy edge. I very carefully make it look like I don't care. Let's cut this down. There we go. We're getting there. That's done. So, and then, ooh, the other thing, I tend to nip off the sharper corners. So we're looking pretty good here. And I use this tool, which is made originally for installing wallpaper. And this runs over the edge of the wallpaper. And I have a plastic one that does exactly the same job, and this one, which I like better, which is made out of wood, for no real reason. They both do the same thing. and I soften the cut edge a little bit, leaving it but softening it. And you'll see in a minute. There, now that's in there. Those edges are taken care of. And I think what I'm going to do, I think this pot needs handles. So I'm going to put little handles on the end. This piece has handles on it. This piece does not. And it's just my whim. Just what I feel like I want to do when I look at the piece to complete it. And I don't have a plan when I start. I just respond to it. So the making is fluid and open-ended. Okay, let me get a little hunk of clay over here. There's a wedging table, it's here. I'll need the wedge just a bit, you don't have to edit this. Adding a little bit of water, slicing the block up and putting in a bucket for 10 or 15 minutes to soften it a bit more, so it's a bit more fluid. Let's see. Okay. All you need, a little bit of clay. And then I'm going to roll out sort of a tapered fat coil. Tapered fat coil. That's one. I'm going to make two. And you can see, had I tried using that clay to make this, it wouldn't have been very good because it's too stiff. And it's perfect for hand building, but lousy for throwing or doing anything fluid like this. So once I have this, I then use a stick. I'm not getting too technical, am I? It's okay, stick. This is a 1x2 stick, all right? And I got my hand in. So I just spin the coil of clay and press into it. Here we go. That's one. And we'll do the second one. There being two handles. Okay, and then once I have the ridges in it, I twist it. Get a closer look at that. Okay. Got that? That's one. Again, if you look at what I've done with the handle and look at the ripples through the pot, you'll see that there is a relationship between those two things. So that's why I like these handles, and I'm doing it more and more these days. So then I want to flatten one side that goes down. Okay, that's getting there. Okay, now we're doing it. So I'll cut these ends off that are a little ragged looking. There we go, getting there. And I'll make them both approximately the same size. There it goes. decide where it's going to go. Here's this. So I'll just scratch where it's going to go. Add slip. Only the very finest dollar store brushes will do. I'm so cheap. God, I'm cheap. But I'm consistently cheap. Here we go. So this will go here. Look at that. You'd think I planned it. You'd think I planned it. You'd think I know what I'm doing. Okay. And here's this one. I'm reversing the look. Okay. And in joining, chances are I'll just use the roller because it joins it in a way, leaving the mark. You can still see that it's been pressed in place, but the mark doesn't interfere with the rest of it. And I'm going to press that down, pure decoration. And I'm going to press this down, right there. I think I'm going to roll this one a little bit right there. Oh, that's better. Soften that a bit. I think that's the finished piece. While the slab was flat. And then pick up the wet slab, put it in the tray, bang it on the floor, cut the edges, and in this case, I decided to add coils to either side rather than handles on the end. The ripple, which was made by one of these tools, Blockbuster video card. You know how old this one is. It's a Blockbuster card. And I just would put the slip down, and the slip is, the color of the slip is softened by the ash glaze. This is the ash glaze on the center of this. This is an oxide mix, and this is the slip. I use the same kind of slip for decorating on the wheel, the potter's wheel, and the same kind of tool to comb through in the same way that I comb through on the slab. So if I had none of this stuff here and did a couple of slashes of slip and then comb through it, that would give me that same feel, that same fluidity in the middle that I'm looking for. And almost all the tools that I use, a lot of the tools that I use, this is a notched, not scraper, what is it, kind of palette knife thing, and it relates to that. So the notches on the tools relate back and forth to other notches in other parts in slightly different ways. So it's consistent. When I look at the work that I'm doing today, it's as good and as fresh as anything I ever did when I was a younger guy. It takes me longer to make everything. I move so slow, but there's not. If the work got weaker, I'd quit. Here's a little thing that bothers me right here. There. Okay. So, and you can see that my decorating on the wheel is akin to my use of the rippling and the twisting of the clay itself in this hand-built piece. And those factors, that sense of fluidity, that sense of directness carries on throughout my work, whether I'm hand-building, whether I'm throwing. The same aesthetic follows through.
Rolling in the Jeep, dust in the air, Clay Road Adventures, we're almost there. Chatting with potters, spinning their wheels on the clay road.